Protesters for a second time. Dozens of people were wounded, some critically, when forces opened fire on a crowd. The ruling royal family has called for dialogue and calm. The US has vetoed a UN Security Council resolution condemning illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank. It was the Obama administration's first Security Council veto. Palestinians have called it a blow to US credibility in the peace process. Now in Iran, thousands of government supporters have been on the streets calling for the execution of opposition leaders. This following last Monday's anti-government rallies. During Friday prayers, a senior cleric said the opposition has lost its reputation among the people. He called for restrictions on opposition leaders Mehdi Karoubi and Mir Hossein Mousavi to prevent them communicating with their supporters. And Iraq's government has imposed a curfew in some parts of the country in response to more angry protests there. In Basra, in the south, protesters blocked a bridge there, demanding the provincial governor quit, and they want better services and jobs. In the city of Kut, protests ended with the storming of a regional government headquarters. At least one teenager was killed in the clashes that followed. That city remains under curfew. Now, many of the protests have been organised online by young people, as Jane Araf reports from Baghdad.
Nofal Falahi refers to this bench as her office. It's from here, with wireless modems, that she and two other art students have launched an internet campaign. It mobilizes young people to go out on the streets to protest.
There's many groups working alone, and so we want to put them together. There was 1,000 people when we started on the first week.
It's all carried out on Facebook. Access to the web was essentially banned in Iraq before 2003. While Nof and her friends had seen the internet a few times, they'd never been able to use it. Mustafa is now an expert in using videos and photos.
We're trying to get our message across, and we say that the youth can change things.
This college is a small oasis of freedom, but students here are trying to widen it, using technology to reach out to young people across Iraq and the region to demand change.
Haider Fadel uses a mapping program to show where the protests have been held in Iraq and where they're expected.
This is the map of Iraq.
Soon they'll have photos and videos attached. The internet is a tool their parents didn't have, but it's just a starting point. The vast majority of young Iraqis don't own a computer or have access to the internet. Nof's group, Iraqi Streets for Change, is also relying on flyers and tweets via cell phone to spread their message. Iraqis all have the same complaints: corruption, bad services, lack of jobs. But the young feel their very future is being hijacked.
My Iraqi government, you have every year $86 billion. I don't have $5. Just like my brother, we don't have $5.
This is the most freedom they've ever had. They don't want to overthrow the system, but for the first time as a group, they're demanding a better life. Jane Araf, AlJazeera, Baghdad.
Yoweri Museveni says he is confident of extending his 25-year reign as Uganda's leader following Friday's presidential election. Few voters took part in the election. Several clashes broke out between supporters of the opposing candidates. Mohamed Addo has more.
The Ugandan military on patrol in the east of the country. They were called in to end the fighting between supporters of Uganda's defense minister, Beatrice Wabudea, and her parliamentary opponent, Nandala Mafabi. Journalists were caught up in the violence. This reporter was shot by security forces. Julius Odeke says he was shot when he refused to hand over his camera.
The windows were closed. I refused to open. At last I had a gunshot and I started feeling myself paralyzed. I saw blood.
And in the capital, Kampala, vote counting commenced immediately. Polling stations closed. Here, opposition supporters cheer every vote for President Museveni's opponents. Tempers flared earlier on in the day when most voting booths did not open on time.
Uganda is a fledgling democracy, and this is just its 6th election in 49 years. And presented with the opportunity to vote once again, many Ugandans are doing so with a deep conviction.
I voted for Museveni straight away. He has given us peace.
With the message going through, corruption will have an end. We shall have more drugs in hospitals, better roads than we have.
Kizza Besigye, President Museveni's most formidable challenger, says he doesn't trust the country's election commission. He plans to do his own vote tallying and announcement. The government says he will be arrested if he carries out his threat. And if that happens, things could take a turn for the worse. Mohammed Ado, AlJazeera, Kampala, Uganda.
Let's get some more news from the Americas. Daljit is in our Washington, D.C. broadcast center.
Tamor, thanks very much. Supporters of Haiti's former president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, have taken to the streets in the thousands. They're calling for his return from exile before next month's runoff presidential vote, even as the two candidates who got through November's election kick off their campaigns. Lucia Newman has more from the capital, Port-au-Prince.
The image of Haiti's exiled president Jean-Bertrand Aristide watches over these workers as they fish out putrid sewer rubbish for $3 a day.
When someone cares for you as Aristide has, it's normal for you to love him back the way we do.
It's that devotion that brought out huge crowds in Port-au-Prince to demand the return of the former president who until last month had been barred from entering Haiti.
It has been almost 7 years to the day since President Aristide was forced out of that presidential palace and into exile. Yet he remains undisputedly the most influential and popular political figure in this country. And even opponents concede that were he to return here tomorrow, he could mobilize tens of thousands of people out onto the streets.
It's a possibility that makes the two candidates for next month's presidential runoff election shudder. At her opening campaign rally, former First Lady Midland Manigat made no mention of the ex-president she says has the right to return from exile, even if she'd rather he didn't.
Would you guarantee that...
Her rival, Michel Martelly, however, refused to confirm when asked repeatedly by AlJazeera if he would guarantee Aristide could enter Haiti if he were elected.
Well, right now we have a second round, and that's what we're worrying about.
The sort of answer that might speed up the return of the man who could overshadow everyone else at this crucial time when Haiti needs to fill its political power vacuum. Lucia Newman, AlJazeera, Port-au-Prince.
Kevin Pina is a journalist and filmmaker who has focused his reporting on human rights issues in Haiti. And I asked him if he thought that the vote on the 20th of March would be free and fair, given that there was fraud during last November's elections.
If the first rounds were fraudulent, these second rounds are a joke. Less than 20% of the population could vote. Remember that the first round occurred in the context of more than 1.3 million people homeless, still living under tents as a fallout from the January earthquake in 2010. There was a cholera epidemic that was raging throughout Haiti, and how they could have expected to hold